So, if you're after an in-depth technical evaluation of the Nikon D750, you're probably not in the right place. If you're after an evaluation based on actually using it in real life as a wedding photographer and boudoir photographer, if you want that and my opinion of whether I did the right thing changing from the Sony A7 III to the D780, what, six weeks ago, then yeah, I'll try and give you my thoughts on that. So I've had the D780 now for it's about 5 weeks. During that time, I've done two and a half, let's call it, weddings. I think 3 boudoir shoots, 1 model shoot, and obviously done lots of playing around with it myself. So my views, my thoughts about any camera are based not on its technical specifications, but does it do the job? And I got, let me go back to 2018. I had a Nikon D750. I had Nikon for forever, since early 90s. Was in love with Nikon, and I had no reason to change. I didn't want to change, but everyone was saying mirrorless is the new way we're going to be taking photos. It's going to very quickly make DSLRs obsolete. So when Nikon announced they were coming out with a mirrorless camera to compete with Sony, I was very interested. So running up towards the end of 2018, I was waiting for Nikon's release of the, as it turned out to be, the Z6. When it was announced, very disappointed indeed. I'd actually pre-ordered one, but cancelled that order because 1 card slot as a wedding photographer is just a no-brainer. I just couldn't risk it. And there was no face detect. I don't think there was any face detect, certainly no eye autofocus, and it just didn't seem to live up to the competition, which was Sony. So I went ahead and, believing that other people on YouTube and all this sort of influencers knew what they were talking about, went ahead, sold all my Nikon gear apart from my D700, and bought Sony A7 III and lenses to go with it, flashes and all the other stuff. My immediate problem, and a problem that I never got over with Sony, and this would apply to any mirrorless camera, is who's it made for? I mean, this is a beauty, okay? When I first got it, for the first few days, I actually found myself walking around the house just carrying the thing. It is just so lovely to hold. It's made to do the job it's designed for. The Sony, on the other hand, I never really liked working with it. The ergonomics are, and in my view, even on the Nikon Z6s and Z6 and 7 and the Canon R5 and R6, I haven't actually held a Canon, but from what I see other people, it looks about the same sort of size, and it's just, I'm sorry, it's just too bloody small. I've got fairly small hands, and this D780, and going back years and years and years to the D700, I think the D780 is just a couple of millimetres smaller. Yeah, that's okay, I can live with that. But these are designed to do a job. They're designed so that when you pick them up, you have buttons in the right place, you can get to buttons, you've got buttons on this side, you can control the camera, you can get the camera to do what you want to do comfortably, reliably, without having to dive into menus all the time. It just does what it's designed for. So I was really disappointed with the Sony, because that just didn't feel like it was designed to be a photographer's camera. It's designed to be I don't want to embarrass anyone or upset anyone, but it's designed to be a boy's toy. Okay, it's got superb autofocus. It really has. This is the equal. I won't say it's better, but it's certainly the equal, and it's more practical, probably more reliable. More of that later. But it kind of feels like they built the Sony because they could do it, and because they could squeeze it into this small body, and Nikon and Canon are doing the same. Because mirrorless cameras can be made smaller, the manufacturers are making them smaller. And they seem to be ignoring the fact that my hand is the same size as it was 10 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe, yeah. And that this is what you're making a camera for. You're not making it for a 6-year-old child. Why are they doing this? I just don't get it. So I never liked using the Sony. It created great photos. It was reliable. Apart from, actually thinking back, there was probably 3 or 4 instances when I did have a problem with it. But I got round it. But during last year, 2020 I'm talking, obviously we had the pandemic. I did a lot less weddings than I would normally do, and I just had time to reflect on my decision to go to Sony, to look back through some of the pictures that I've taken with the Nikon, compare them with the Sony, and I realised how much I missed using a proper camera, a camera designed for a pair of human hands, and also miss the Nikon look, the look of the photos. There's just something, I'm not going to try and even sort of break it down and describe it, but there is a look, and I much preferred that to the Sony kind of smartphone look that the Sony seem to have. So, changed from Sony just before Christmas 2020, got the D780. Did I make the right choice in going back to Nikon as compared to Sony? And is the 780 the right camera for me as a wedding, boudoir, family, portrait type photographer? And it's a bit early to say because it's midwinter, we've got the pandemic still here, all weddings are cancelled for me for the next 3 months. I've got some commercial work to do, and that's it really. But what I can tell you so far is, yes, it is absolutely gorgeous to hold. I absolutely love it. I prefer it actually to the D700, and that's nice. Everything is in the right place. Everything is well designed. The buttons are the right size. They're the right feel. You can feel when you're touching a button. The Sony, quite often, I literally couldn't feel when I was touching a button. I had to take my eye away, look, and make sure I was pressing A button and B the right button because they're so damn close together. So from an ergonomics viewpoint, the 780 is back where it should be. It's a proper camera. So what if you're thinking about upgrading from your D750 or your D800 or any other Nikon camera to the D780? Why would you choose that? Why not choose the mirrorless option? Well, for me, as I've just said, the ergonomics are so important. If you're an occasional shooter and you just spend the odd hour here and there going out, then a mirrorless camera probably isn't going to be a problem. When you're walking around with this in your hand for 10 or 12 hours a day, taking 1,500 shots, it needs to be something that you're very, very comfortable, confident and happy using. And this obviously fits the bill. But so would the D780, 750, I'm sorry. I had a D750 for, it was about 18 months I used the D750. So why is this better? Why not go back to the D750? Why did I buy a D780? I could have bought a D750 for probably a third of the price that I paid for this, and it would still be in good condition. Right. They have Nikon have updated the D780 compared to the D750. Remember, the D750 is a DSLR. The live view on the D750 is much the same as all the previous Nikon cameras. In other words, pretty crap. It's really not useful for very much. Whereas this has got live view with the mirrorless focusing system in it. But let's talk about that separately. Let's just stick to the viewfinder way of using a camera. They have made some updates. They have improved the focusing. It's slight. I haven't got a 750 to actually compare side by side, but I remember using the 750 pretty well. It wasn't that long ago. And the focusing is a little bit better in that I think the tracking is probably slightly better. The big problem I had with the Sony focusing, although it was brilliant, there were many occasions doing boudoir shoots when I'd be shooting into bright backlit scenes, and that was one of the occasions when the Sony really didn't like that, and I either had to resort to manual focus or quite often resort to that shot was actually shot with a D700. Autumn last year, I think it was, because the Sony, I kept trying to focus and it wouldn't do it. This was there with the right lens on, picked it up and just got the shot instantly. The focus on the 780 is probably even slightly better, as I say, in that respect to the D750, which was streets ahead of that situation compared to the Sony. The buttons are a bit more programmable on the 780 than the 750, especially now that you've got the live view with the mirrorless type focusing technology. I've used a couple of buttons to do things which on the D780 you wouldn't need to do because you haven't got that focusing system. So that's very welcome. Downside, the focusing area on here is slightly smaller than the D750, which in turn is slightly smaller than the D700. It's not a big deal, but it does feel different to using the Sony, where you could look through the viewfinder and you've got the whole screen you can focus on. You did have a lot more flexibility in composition terms. However, in reality, that doesn't come into play, certainly at weddings. It doesn't come into play very often. If we just look at this shot here, and that was actually shot with the D700 as well, unless you are in a particular situation, maybe doing a model shoot where you are quite close to your subject and you're looking to, and you're shooting with a 1.4 lens and you're looking for, you know, razor thin depth of field, maybe focus and recompose isn't going to be the best way to do it. Of course, on the 780 you've got an alternative, but just sticking with the viewfinder, focus and recompose, unless you are shooting with a razor thin depth of field, with some practice it's very easy to focus and recompose and shoot. It's something I've done for decades, so it's not anything new and it's not a problem. The metering is slightly better on this than the D750 because they've managed to link the spot metering. I always use spot metering. They've linked the spot metering point to the focus point. Now that's not a problem if you choose one, you know, a single focus point or D9 or something like that. Then it will link the exposure to the actual focus point, and you can move that around the AF area, and it will move the metering point as well. If you choose the auto area, and I'll talk about that in a second, the auto area, then it didn't link. I don't know what it did do, but it didn't link to the actual focus point that the camera had chosen to use as part of the 51 points that it could choose from. So, but this does seem to do it. It can choose a point right over here, and it will expose for that point. And I've checked this out, and it really does work extremely well. So that makes life a little bit easier for me. The auto area AF and face detection. Nikon cameras allegedly have had this for quite a few years. It doesn't go back to the D700, but I think probably the D800 has it, the D750, and obviously the D4 and 5 and that sort of thing. Face detect in auto area. I did try it on the D750, but I never found it reliable enough to actually use. Certainly not for a wedding. I wasn't going to risk it. Bride and dad walking up the aisle would be a perfect time to use it, but it wasn't reliable enough. This, I haven't actually used it for the bride and her dad walking up the aisle, but I will be on my next wedding. I think it's going to be accurate enough. It's pretty damn good at picking up faces in auto area mode, which means you have got a bit more flexibility composition wise, and you haven't got to put a single point on her face and sort of track that as she comes up the aisle. So it is a little bit better from that point of view. The ISO performance is absolutely stunning. One of the 2.5 weddings that I have done with it was on a very dark, dismal afternoon in a traditional, very dark hotel with like dark red curtains, dark red carpets, and lots of oak panelling. I had no choice but to take some shots, take lots of shots at 12,800 ISO. There were a few that even popped up to 25,600, and I've actually supplied some of those to the client. I've had no problems at all. No one's come back and said, "Oh, I don't like all the noise in there." It's just not a problem. It might be a problem for another photographer, because if you zoom in 100%, yeah, you can still see some noise. If I got rid of every bit of noise, you'd end up with a very, very soft image. So I've chosen something kind of in between, and the client is extremely happy. There's no problems at all. I do think it's better than D750 from that point of view. And minor things like auto AF fine tune. You can pop a lens on, choose in the menu, and let the camera automatically adjust the AF fine tune. I've done it on all my 4 lenses, and it works absolutely brilliantly. Absolutely perfect AF fine tuning. The lack of a pop-up flash is not a problem. I don't know if you can see, but my D700, I've actually got some black tape over the flash just so that I don't accidentally pop the flash up. I never use a pop-up flash, so that's for me, that's just not an issue. The screen resolution is even better than the rear screen resolution is even better than D750, and is absolutely beautiful. It really is. It's touchscreen menus. You can do things on the menu. You can zoom into photos. Really is a nice touch. And then, of course, you have the live view. We have a dedicated button now, very easily to get to for live view, and again, you can do things like choose a focus point. You can zoom in to get the shot. It is literally the same as a Z6 in this case, and it's very good. And I've seen lots of video criticising the Z6 and Z7 focus tracking. I don't find this any problem at all. It's every bit as good as the Sony was at focus tracking. It locks onto something, and it really does lock on. I would say it's better than 3D tracking through the viewfinder from what I've seen so far. But certainly playing around with it, it's really good. I used it a few times at the weddings and things. The face detect is just as good as the Sony, and the fact you're using the screen, pop-out screen, actually I find quite useful, because it's very easy to just do that and spend the entire day at a wedding doing that. and you're at a normal height, and you have to sort of really sometimes think, oh no, I need to get a shot from up here, I need to get down low, just to get some different looking shots. And if you've got the screen on, it's very much easier to do a shot from down here or from up there with the screen. If you're already using it, you haven't got to think, oh, I must get a different shot. It does encourage you to be more playful, shall we say, in composition terms. So I'll kind of wrap this up by saying, yes, definitely, we're in lockdown. As I say, I've only got a few commercial shoots on, no weddings or anything like that. So most days, I find myself just picking the camera up and walking around the house, taking pictures of the cats, going out in the garden and getting a few shots, just so I can use the camera, because I really love using it. I didn't ever do that with the Sony, apart from the first few weeks when I was kind of getting used to it and I wanted to find out how to use it. This is so much nicer to use. I even like the sound. I love the image quality, and I'm not talking sharpness. Yes, I've got the 85 1.4 D lens, which is just it's as sharp as anything I had on the Sony. The focus speed might not be quite as fast, but it's plenty fast enough. I don't do sports or anything like that. I've got the 50mm Sigma 1.4 art lens, and on the D700 35 f2, which we got what I did that shot with, and there's a 17 to 35 zoom lens as well for the really wide sort of shots. And that is my setup, and I absolutely love it. So yes, moving from Sony back to Nikon was absolutely the right move. Is the D780 better than the D750? Yes, it is. You would have to look at yourself and what you're going to do and your finances to see whether it's justifiable to spend the extra money that this would cost, and is the sort of hybrid camera going to help you with your photography. Also I didn't mention the video of this, of course, and this is as good as the Sony did. I think I'm really not into video. I do 5-6 second clips all the way through a wedding, so I'm taking, and that's another reason I got this. Sorry, let me digress a bit. I can be shooting in live view and I just flick one switch and I'm now taking video. It is that quick. I haven't got to move any dials, knobs or anything else. The video is set up to shoot the video I want. Focusing is brilliant. I can slow it down so we've got nice smooth sort of focusing on subjects and switching between subjects. I absolutely love the video on this. It's everything I could ever want, which of course doesn't apply to the D750. So I'm going to do more videos about the D780 as I go out on shoots. I'm hoping to get some behind the scenes video that I can show you this thing in action. And if you've got any questions about the D750, if you'd like me to do some videos to help you understand whether or not you would like a D750, just get in touch, drop me a comment, and I'll be happy to do that. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers for now.